Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our information session. My name is Patrick Donahue, and I am the Assistant Director of Master's Admission and Recruitment at the Boston University Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. I am also pleased to be joined today with two members of our staff from faculty from the Mathematics and Statistics Department, and I will let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Halloween Wright. I'm a professor of the practice, and I teach primarily in the MSSP program.
I cannot unmute myself. Hi, sorry about that technical glitch. My name is Sean Grog. I'm a staff member in the Math and Statistics Department, and I am the Graduate Program Administrator for the MA and MSSP program.
Thank you both. So we will cover a little bit about Boston University itself overall as a school and a campus. We'll talk a little bit about the application process and campus life, and then we'll delve a little bit more into the specific programs within the department. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to submit them through the chat box. We'll be having breaks in the presentation for any questions you have, and then there'll be time after the session as well for any overall questions about the presentation. So just to talk a little bit about Boston University and who we are as an institution, we are a top-ranked research institution located in the heart of Boston. We are one of a number of different schools in the area. We are a large institution. We have about 30,000 students in total, around 16,000 undergraduates and 14,000 graduate students. But at the same time, we have the close-knit feel of a smaller institution. So what I mean by that is that Boston University is broken up into many different schools and colleges. So the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences is one of 13 different graduate schools on campus. And then within the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, we also have individual departments. So students have an identity with Boston University, with their individual school and college, and then also within their academic department and their program. So while they have the ability to tap into the resources of Boston University and all that it can offer, they also have the ability to feel like they're part of that small-knit community. In terms of our academic programs, our economics programs are ranked number 23rd in the country by US News, and our computer science programs are ranked number 49th in the country by US News. And all of our programs are very highly ranked, so we're a very competitive institution. And then just to talk a little bit more about the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences itself, we have two sort of main cores for our programs. One is a sense of collaboration. And that collaboration might be between students and faculty working on larger projects. It might be between students across different departments who are working collaboratively on different classes or different research opportunities. It's also a collaborative sense in terms of the city of Boston. Boston University students oftentimes partner with other institutions on different projects. We are also part of a consortium with a number of different schools in the Boston area that allow students to take courses from those schools here on our campus and also allow students to take courses over on their campuses as well. And then the other sort of crux of our programs is really putting theory into practice and taking all those great skills that they're learning in the classroom and being able to apply it out into the field. We'll talk a little bit more about how that specifically applies to our Master of Science in Statistical Practice program a little bit later on, but just as another example, within our biology department, we have our Master of Science in Biology program. And as part of that program, students, as part of their coursework, have the ability to do a research project either in Ecuador or in Belize. So students can go and take those skills that they're learning out in the classroom, and then they can apply them out in the field with a faculty member. In terms of our location, Boston University's campus itself is about a 2-mile stretch along Commonwealth Avenue. So we're a pretty lean campus, and the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences is located more in the central portion of Boston University's campus. We'll talk a little bit more too about what that means in terms of campus life and the access to different buildings on campus. And then in terms of the number of degrees that we offer 90 degrees in total across many different areas, like computational sciences, which might include programs like computer science or mathematics, social sciences like programs such as sociology and anthropology, natural sciences for programs like biology and chemistry, and the humanities for programs like English or history of art and architecture. So we really cover a wide range of different programs across just the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences itself. Just to cover a couple different numbers of interest, we were named one of the most innovative national universities in US News World and Report, both for 2018 and for 2019. And only 36 schools were selected for that category. And we are innovative in a number of different ways, some of which through our initiatives here on campus. Most recently, we had a center created on campus called the Build Lab, where students can go and take their idea for a company or a product, and they can work with professionals there to help build the foundations if they want to pursue that endeavor, if they want to look at marketing strategies for their product or how best to create their app and develop their company. If that's what they're interested in doing, they can work with those teams. And it doesn't have to specifically apply to their major of interest. It could be an idea for an app where students want to exchange recipes if they really love baking. It's an opportunity for them to meet with some professionals and get some really great entrepreneurial experience from them. We have 358,000 career connections, although by now I'm sure it's probably more than that. And those come in the form of our alumni. So we have a really large, expansive alumni network that's very global in size. BU is a very global institution, so we have a lot of connections across the globe that students can tap into to be able to figure out what career path is right for them. And then in terms of our applications, this past year, we had around 4,500 applications for about 350 spots. So we are a very competitive institution, and we definitely see those applications increasing with this past year, so becoming more and more competitive with each passing year. So we have a couple featured alumni here, and I will pass it over to Professor Wright to talk a little bit more about the alumni featured.
Okay, so these are three students I know really well. Let's start with Brian. So Brian graduated just last year. He's currently working at Fidelity, which is a very large investment management company. Headquartered in Boston. They're number 5 in the U.S. in terms of investment management companies. Brian is working in a group where he's engaged with a bunch of machine learning projects that I don't think I'm allowed to describe in detail. Brian was my TA for a full year because he was going to school part-time. And finished in 2 years. Anahita came to us from. I should say Brian is a BU undergraduate in mathematics. Anahita came to us from Berklee College of Music, which is an unusual background for a statistician. But she came in from Shazam. One of the music sites that will identify music that you hear just on your cell phone. She was a real leader in her group. She graduated, went to Spotify, and then was recruited out of Spotify to work at Netflix, where it's my understanding she is helping to pick music as they move movies from one culture to another. Very interesting job, interesting graduate. Scarlett. So Scarlett was also a TA of mine, and is working currently at Amazon up in Seattle, excellent student. And has decided when she came here that she wanted to take up snowboarding. And I understand from her friends who are still here that she makes the trip back to New Hampshire and Vermont to go skiing in the East, which is amazing to me, but that's what she does. Anyway, three very interesting and successful graduates for us.
Thank you. So I just want to mention too, as you might have been able to tell, that Haviland was really connected with these students and knows a lot about their stories. That's pretty common here at BU for our alumni to be, our faculty to be very connected with their students and to know a lot, not about their personal lives, but also about their career paths after they've graduated. So they're a really great resource for our students to be able to tap into to know what sort of paths they can pursue after they graduate. So we're going to segue a little bit into life at Boston University. I just want to briefly pause to see if you have any questions thus far. Yep, so it looks like there is a question. If you just want to submit it through the chat box and we can see what your question is.
Sorry, do you mean I should type it or should I just say it?
So it looks like you might have been trying to just talk during that piece. If you just want to submit it during the chat, it's a little bit tricky when there's multiple people. Oh, looks like there's a question.
So for our MA program, which I want to specify, oh, Sean here, by the way, for our MA program, which I should specify is a different program than our MS in statistical practice, we have a class size of, depending on the year, has fluctuated between almost 30 to closer to 15. That lower number is the typical number, but that's the range roughly.
So I can tackle this one. We don't require interviews as part of the admissions process for either of the programs. And the session will last for about an hour in length.
Regarding the MS class size, our standard class size for MS is about 45. We are looking to currently expand the program slightly. We're not trying to dilute it too much, of course, because as Patrick was touching upon, the personal connections between our faculty and students are really important to us. So we don't want to have the ratio of students to faculty get too high. But next year, we can expect it to be anywhere from 40 to 60 students, roughly 4 professors involved there. So it's about a 1 to 10 or 1 to 15 ratio between professor and student.
So I will dive into life at Boston University. Just as a reminder, we'll have plenty of time towards the end for any overall questions about the programs. Just to talk a little bit about campus life, as I was mentioning earlier, we do have sort of a lean campus in terms of the length. Our main building is located within the central portion of campus, although students might take classes at a number of locations throughout the campus. We are close to our George Sherman Union, which is our student union. There's a food court area there, several study spaces that students can utilize. It's also connected to our Mugar Memorial Library, which is the largest library on campus. We are also within walking distance to our Fitness and Recreation Center, which is over in the western portion of campus. It's about an 8 to 10 minute walk. That is a 4-floor facility. For students who enroll on a full-time basis, they'll automatically get access to the Fitness and Recreation Center. So they can use their student IDs to swipe in whenever they want to access it. Students can take classes there too if they want to. I was both an undergrad and a grad here at BU, so I took a few classes there. I took ballroom dancing in my freshman year and then weight training my senior year. So they really have a large variety of classes that students could take. And then we're also in close proximity to Kenmore Square, which is an area within Boston. There are a couple different restaurants over there, and it's also in close proximity to Fenway Park, which is where the Boston Red Sox, our professional baseball team, plays. And then in terms of on-campus events, we host a number of improv shows. We have our BU hockey team, which is probably the most popular of the sporting events that we offer, which is over in the western portion of campus. And then if students have done intramural sports in the past, they can do that as well on BU's campus. And then just to reference the photo here, It's of our BU Beach, which is one of our green spaces on campus. The BU Beach overlooks the Charles River, which runs essentially right past our campus, sort of in parallel with how our campus is laid out. And you can see students here on a nice day outside. You can be reading a book, doing some studying, hanging with friends. So while we are an urban campus, there are several green spaces for students to utilize as well. And then just to talk a little bit about the city of Boston too. There's lots of different neighborhoods for students to be able to explore. I've been living in Boston now for almost 10 years, and I still find that there are new parts of the city that I discover that I haven't actually seen before. For students who are looking for shopping, there is the Prudential Center, which is a sort of major shopping unit. And then close by, there's also Newbury Street, which is a longer street with a number of different shops, some of which might be familiar, like Adidas or H&M, and then they also have some smaller shops on there, like Trident Booksellers, which is a bookstore, and then there is a store, one of my favorites, called the Fairy Shop, which was previously the Harry Potter shop, and then it switched back to the Fairy Shop, and they sell a number of different eclectic products there. We have a number of centers for theater, music, and art. One of the more popular that we see is the Museum of Fine Arts, mostly because students can get free tickets there to the MFA, and which is something that I took advantage of as a student. They change their exhibits throughout the year. So I was able to go with friends. It's a quick walk, about 20 to 25 minutes over to this Museum of Fine Arts. We also have a number of sporting events here. As I was mentioning, we're very close to Fenway Park, which is where our professional baseball team, the Red Sox, plays. We have the Boston Celtics, which is our professional basketball team, and they play over in the northern portion of the city. And then we also have the Boston Bruins, which is our professional hockey team, and they play in the northern portion of the city as well. And then in terms of housing, we have a couple different options. We have 2 on-campus graduate student units. There is Peabody Hall, which is in the southern portion of the campus, close to Fenway Park. And that's featured here on the left side of the screen in the 2 photos. So Peabody Hall has a number of apartment-style housing, which are all fully furnished. And those can range in price. They might be anywhere from $700 a month to $1,000 a month. And that really varies depending on how many roommates students have, the size of the space, but that is specifically a graduate housing unit for our students. The other graduate housing unit is called 580 Commonwealth Avenue. It's very close to our main building. Just for reference, the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences is in 705 Commonwealth, and that's 580 Commonwealth. So it's about a 5 to 6 minute walk for our students. And similar to Peabody Hall, they offer apartment-style housing for students that are all fully furnished. For students who are looking to live off campus, they might typically live in one of the nearby neighborhoods of Allston, Brighton, Brookline, or they might be living across the river in Cambridge or Somerville, all relatively close and most within walking distance, if not accessible by the T, which is our public transportation system. I actually live in Brookline currently in an area called Coolidge Corner, and it's a 20-minute walk to work every day. So it's really accessible. I know for students who live in Allston, they can walk onto campus or ride bikes too. There's plenty of student spaces for students to store bikes if they prefer to use that method. And then how students sort of find those off-campus housing options is through a number of different methods. They might reach out to their individual academic departments to connect them with other students. We do have a specific BU off-campus housing site, which connects students with Boston students in the area who are also looking for housing. So it's a really great resource for students to either find apartments that need spaces or to connect with roommates to help them look for apartments in the city. And just to talk a little bit about the student groups that we offer, we have the Graduate Student Organization, or GSO, which is for master's and PhD students. And they offer a number of different programs throughout the year, some networking events, some social events, and some preparing students for just graduate life in general. And then we also have a partnership with GWISE, which is the Graduate Women in Science and Engineering, which is a partnership with the School of Engineering. And similar to the GSO, they provide a number of different opportunities throughout the year for students to network or to just have social outings with other graduate students. And then we have some specific department-specific groups. For students interested in mathematics and statistics, they might be looking at BUCASA, which is the Boston University student chapter of the American Statistical Association. We will transition a little bit into the application process. I'm answering these questions here. So I'll dive into that piece because I'm sure you have a lot of interest in the last piece, which is covering more of the program specific. I know some of you have already submitted applications, so this part might not be quite as relevant, but for those who haven't yet to submit applications, this might be a helpful segment. In terms of required components, we do require an unofficial transcript of completed coursework. For international students, it must be English translated. It doesn't have to be an official document, so we accept screenshots of your student portal that might list your grades. It might be a scan of an official transcript you've received. As long as your name, the courses you've taken, the grades you've earned are all listed, that should be fine. For most of our programs, we require 3 letters of recommendation. Those can all be submitted online. For some of our programs, we require official GRE scores. And then for international students, we require either official TOEFL or IELTS scores, as well as a personal statement. In terms of the recommended timeline for students who are looking potentially down the road, we do recommend typically starting 2 months before the deadline. That usually gives students time to coordinate with any recommenders, as well as take the GRE or the TOEFL if they have time. And for students who are looking for potentially later down the year, for next year, we typically recommend taking the GRE or the TOEFL in the fall. I do want to add that for this upcoming fall 2020 cycle, the priority deadline for our students is March 15th for the MA in Stats and the MS in Statistical Practice. So it's coming up in about 2-ish weeks. And then the applications will still remain open for a period of time until June 30th for students to be able to submit their applications. So there's plenty of time for you to be able to submit things for fall 2020. And then just a couple of tips and pointers. We typically recommend that students be very selective with their recommenders. Their recommender should be able to speak to your ability to do graduate level coursework. So that might be past professors that you've had in class. It might be graduate students that you've worked with in a different capacity. If you've been out of the field for a number of years and you're working within a professional organization, we do accept professional recommendations. And if they can speak to your ability to handle multiple priorities and balance level of work that you're doing in your current position, that might also be helpful for them to point to for a potential graduate student. And then really using the personal statement to your advantage and outlining why you should be admitted to the program. It's also a good space to be able to cover any parts of your application that might not be clear on first inspection. So if there is a part of your transcript where you maybe didn't do so great and your GPA was a little bit lower and you want to explain what was going on in that period of time, you can put that in your personal statement. That is the space to do it. And typically what we find is that they're around 2 to 3 pages in length, but there's not necessarily a strict requirement regarding the personal statement. And then really trying to complete all the application pieces prior to the deadline. And what I mean by that is making sure that your letters of recommendation have been submitted. If you require test scores, that all of your test scores have been submitted and are matched to your application. The sooner that you complete your application, the sooner we'll be able to give a full review to all of the pieces that you've submitted. And then just talk a little bit about financial aid. Many of our departments offer smaller merit-based scholarships, which can vary depending on the individual department. Typically what we find is that they might cover 1 to 2 courses per semester for the length of the program. Some may offer opportunities to be teaching or research assistants, but typically what we find is that students might find their opportunities once they're on campus. So it might not be something that's within their offer of admission, but once they're here and they get to meet the faculty and build some of those connections, there might be opportunities that arise from there for them to be teaching or research assistants. For our domestic students, typically they apply for loans to cover the cost. That might mean private loans, that might mean federal loans. We do work very closely with our students over the summertime to help prepare them for the fall semester, as the process is a little bit different from what students might have experienced in their undergraduate. So we help to coordinate that, as there are several steps to apply for loans through that process. And then for our international students, we have a number of specialized loans that they can apply for as well, such as Empower. So we also work with our international students to let them know all the options they have in terms of being able to tap into those other loans. I will now transition it over to my colleagues in the department to talk a little bit more about your specific programs of interest.
Hi everyone, Sean again. So just to outline some basic facts before we get into the details of our MSSP program, it is an 8-credit, or rather not, it's an 8-course degree. This, at BU, typically a full-time student will take 4 classes a semester for a standard load. You can take as few as 3, or if you're a part-time student, you can take 1 to 2. So by this nature, if you take 4 classes both semesters, you'll graduate in 9 months. But it can be completed in up to 2 years if you are part-time at any point during that window of time. Also, an important part of our program is our portfolio. Haviland will get into this in the upcoming slides, but a huge part of our program is practice. Practice with BU researchers, practice with companies and institutions in the area. And our goal for this is not only to help you develop these skills so that when you get out into the real world, you can use them, but when you get out into the real world, you can show, I've already used them. Here's what I've done. Here's what I'm capable of. So that portfolio is something that you would need to turn in at the end of your time here. And it's essentially just about a 5-page overview of all of the projects you've done and the work you've put into it. As I touched upon before, it is possible to be a part-time student in our program. We've had quite a few students over the years do this while holding a full-time job. Brian Clare, one of our alums that we mentioned before, is a great example of it. We're also actively working to make our program more friendly for professionals in the area. So we are, in the past, the centerpiece of our program, which we'll get to in a moment, is our statistics practicum. And in the past, we've had all of our students in one course of that. Going forward next year, we're going to be opening up an evening practicum. This isn't exclusive to part-time students, but it is meant to make the schedule a bit more friendly for those who do have a job. I can talk more about that later in the Q&A if that is something of interest to people. But anyway, so as I touched upon before, our program is rooted in professional practice. I feel, having been someone who only graduated a few years ago myself, there's often the struggle of, do I go out and do I get work experience when I finish undergrad, or do I go out and get another degree? I think one of the greatest parts of our program is that you will get both in the same 9 to 12 month period. You'll get out with real world experience that you can show to potential employers, as well as a great degree from a great university. And that's all because consulting is a part of our academic course load. To speak more about that, we'll go to the next slide, which Haviland can talk about.
Okay, so the MSSP program consists of 8 courses total, plus the portfolio. The core of the program is really the practicum. So the practicum is a 2-course series, and through the practicum, we run a statistical consulting practice that's available to anybody in the BU community. So we do about 100 total projects per year in our consulting practice. Each consulting project is assigned to a team of students. There are usually 4 or 5, no more than 5 students per team. The teams are managed by doctoral students in statistics who are involved with the students, give them guidance, use it as teaching opportunities, and each project is also assigned a faculty mentor to oversee the entire thing. Students, the consulting projects fall into three categories. We have some that are where people come in with relatively simple questions. We call those one and done. They come in, they ask their question, we're able to answer right away. They go back. They go back to their work, and we help them in this small way. So a lot of people come in for limited duration. Those are ones that take about 10 hours per person on the team. We actually write up an engagement description for each one of those. And then we have collaboration projects, which are much longer. Collaboration projects usually involve research. Typically, it's published research, and students get publication credits listed as authors and contributors in the published articles. The consulting practice also involves making presentations in the practicum. We devote a class period per week for those presentations. An interesting aspect of this is that of course people come into the program. We start the program actually in mid-August with what we call the MSSP boot camp. So this goes for a couple of weeks, 5 days a week, 9 to 5, with a couple of hours off in the middle of the day. It's pretty intensive. It brings people up to speed on linear algebra and probability, but just as important, it brings them up to speed on each other. We start off with a class full of people who mostly don't know each other. But on October 1st, we open up our consulting practice. And so by October 1st, they need to be ready to answer questions from clients, interact with clients, work as a team. And so starting on August, the middle of August to the 1st of October, we go through intensive training, not just of the students, but also of the doctoral students who need to be ready to manage the program. So that's 675 and 676. As the program progresses from the fall through the spring, the kinds of projects that we do, the approaches that we take, develop as in conjunction with the courses. So the courses are coordinated with the practicum, so that by the time we're into the spring, we're doing statistical learning projects, neural network projects, that sort of thing, in the practicum. In addition to consulting that comes from the BU community, I should say that the BU community, in addition to doing 100 projects a year, I can't think offhand of any department or school that we haven't done work with. Everything from projects coming from the School of Public Health, biology, neuroscience, all the way to sociology, psychology, School of Theology. We've done them all. Fine arts. It's an amazing spread of projects and a ton of fun. We also, in addition to the consulting projects, we do industrial partner projects. These range from, we've worked with consulting firms, pharmaceutical companies, investment management companies, sports teams, including sports teams at BU. And these are semester-long projects. In these, the students work directly with faculty members and on a semester-long project that's presented to the class and to clients. Clients are usually pretty involved with this. The project that I'm doing this semester is with Fidelity Investments, and we meet with them face-to-face every 2 weeks, and and on the phone in the interview, in between weeks. Anyway, that's the statistics practicum. As far as I know, there are very few projects. There are very few courses like this in other programs. This is different from doing capstone experiences, that sort of thing. It goes. The focus of the practicum is on doing statistics in practice and working in teams that include computer scientists and area experts. Want me to do this one too? Okay. Other courses. So the other courses, in the fall, we started another 2-semester sequence on modeling. The first one, 678, is statistical modeling. It starts off with simple regression. By the time you're starting the consulting in early October, students have talked about regression through multi-level models. And in the spring, it's the focus is applied statistical machine learning, everything from random forest to neural nets. Also in the spring, we do 677, which is conceptual foundations in statistics. This is a course that's intended to dig into why the statistics methodology that we use work. So in each class, the objective is to talk about the theoretical background, the statistical principles involved, and then the practice aspects of topics in statistics. In the fall, we offer an elective that most of our students take called data science with R. R is, as most of you know, a programming language written by and for statisticians. It's the primary language that's used in the program. It's used for everything from doing statistical modeling and applying statistical methods to producing documents, presentations, and websites. In the spring, we follow this up with portions of the discussion sessions for 676, the practicum, and those discussion sessions are focused on Python, SAS, and SQL. So by the time our students graduate, they've either taken a course in R or placed out of that. They've taken and they've passed a course in a test at the end of their 676 in Python or SAS, their choice, and SQL. I've talked a little bit about, you're going to talk about this, right? Yeah. I've talked a little bit about partner projects. We also have a lecture series.
I can take that if you
want. Okay, go ahead.
So, yeah, Haviland's already talked about the partner projects aspect of this slide, so we'll skip right past that. But one of the outside of the classroom goals of our program is to prepare our students for the workforce, as well as get them involved in the workforce while they're still students. So we have a lecture series about once a month called Stats at Work, where we'll bring in a data scientist from, it could be biostatistics, it could be tech, it could be investing, but someone in the data science industry, which is a very broad industry at this point, to come in, talk to our students. They talk about their experience in the workforce. They talk about the skills they need in the workforce. And then a very key aspect of it is they will talk about what they look for when they're hiring people in the workforce. So this is about an hour-long lecture followed by an hour-long meet and greet just for our MSSP students. It provides a great opportunity to pick their brain. It provides a great opportunity to network and learn how to network in a controlled and safe environment. So it's a pretty great opportunity. We also have a lot of students do internships here. I can get more into that in the Q&A if any potential international students are curious about how that works visa-wise and everything. But we have an internship for credit option, which is a 2-credit course. It's called MA 901. And essentially, if you get an offer for an internship in the area, we register you for 2 credits. It's included in your portfolio towards the end of your program. Typically, we'll see students finish our program in 3 semesters. They'll take 3 to 4 classes their first semester, maybe another 3 the second semester, and then over the summer they'll do an internship for credit. For those of you who maybe aren't aware, getting an internship when you are post-graduation in the US and Boston is quite difficult. Oftentimes internships are exclusively for students. So being able to do this through our program, I think, is a great opportunity. So anyway, oftentimes people will complete an internship over the summer and then come back in the fall for 1 to 2 classes to finish off their degree. Again, in the Q&A, we can talk more about our networking opportunities. Actually, one more thing I'll talk about is we also, in the fall, when students first get here, have 3 professional development lectures in the fall that are separate from Stats at Work, where the professors will sit you down and talk to you basically about how to be most effective and successful once you graduate. It's talking about how to create a resume, how to present your best foot forward in the interview process, how to search for jobs. So our program is largely geared towards, and this is the MS program I want to clarify I'm talking about, geared towards making sure people are successful data scientists once they leave our program. And we try to do everything we can to make sure that happens. So just to wrap it up before we get to the Q&A section, the vocal Q&A section, why choose MSSP at BU? I'm not going to say anything here that you haven't already heard, but like I said before, you will graduate not only with a degree, but with work experience and a portfolio all at once that you can go out, and it really helps you distinguish yourself from other people who are graduating from master's programs where it was mostly theory heavy, because you can prove to them that you can do the work that they're asking you for because you've already done it. It's a great opportunity for team-based learning. This allows you to not only foster a lot of great personal relationships, but just if you have any weaknesses, there are people right there that can maybe pick you up, help guide you, help get you through the project in a very collaborative environment. As I just mentioned, there's a ton of networking experiences and opportunities that you'll get while you're here. And as often has been touched upon by Patrick, Boston itself is a huge part of our program. Between our partner projects, the other universities in the area, it's a great environment to learn and grow as a student, as a data scientist, and not to be too cheesy, but as a human being. So I think that wraps up the presentational part of this.
So we will now open up to questions. I know you guys have started submitting a number of them. Feel free to keep submitting it through the chat box. I did just want to talk very briefly. I know a student had a question about elaborating a little bit more on sort of the financial aid process. And there's a couple different components for that. So any offers for merit-based scholarships would be within the offer of admission. And the way that those work is that they're essentially applied to the student's account when they register for classes. So that deducts from the total tuition that they would need to pay for. And then if they're taking out any loans, they would work with our office usually around June, July. We would start to coordinate that, and then everything would be in place for those students to be able to take out the loans for their semester. What we often find for graduate students is that they might also take out loans to cover housing costs, which is something that doesn't typically happen for undergraduate students. So what they would do is essentially have that financial aid cover beyond the cost of tuition, and then they would be able to take out that extra additional loan amount to help cover the cost of housing if they need that as well.
Piggybacking off that real quick, someone had asked before about TA and internship opportunities. So I'll just talk briefly about overall student employment opportunities while you're here. We unfortunately can't, given the size of our department, promise our students any positions upon acceptance to our program. However, it's not at all uncommon for our students to serve as TAs, both for our MSSP courses, but for other math courses, potentially even other courses in different departments across campus, if you happen to strike up a relationship with a professor. We also have students who do research assistantships while they're here. To get in the nitty-gritty of the details, I believe that the pay for that's about $18.50 an hour, US dollars, of course. Those are, again, not guaranteed, but I would say in a given year, we'll have close to 5 or 6 students find one of those on campus as well. And then, as I said before, if you get an internship, while you will have to register for academic credit, I do believe some are paid. Again, that's not guaranteed, but just to talk about that. Preeti asked this question before. I apologize if I said your name wrong, but this is a great question. The difference between the MA and MSSP program. So I want to preface it by saying neither program precludes you or prohibits you from following any different or following a given path outside of here. But essentially the way we look at it is that the MA in statistics is far more theory heavy. Typically, we'll find students apply and enroll in this program if they're interested in pursuing a PhD afterwards, whereas our MS is more, as we've stressed heavily, practice focused. So it's about helping prepare you to be a data science in the industry. Again, neither of these are exclusive to one or the other. We've had 3 or 4 students graduate from the MSSP program and go on to pursue PhDs in biostatistics, psychology, statistics. We've also had a plethora of students from the MA program jump right into the industry as well. So it's more about what your goals are and what you're looking for in a program. But to put it short, MA is theory heavy, MS is practice heavy, but you will get theory in the MS as well. Helen, we had a student ask about prospective students who don't have programming background.
I think I answered that. But so.
Oh, you might have. I haven't been.
If that answer doesn't work, then ask again.
Okay.
You mentioned this. If students aren't sure between programs, do you recommend applying for one or both, or?
We have a number of people who apply to both.
Yeah, someone else had mentioned this in the chat about applying to both. So if you are interested in both programs or you're not quite sure, you're certainly welcome to apply to both. This does entail that you submit 2 different applications, which means 2 different application fees, unfortunately. But you're welcome to apply to both. If you are accepted to one, that doesn't mean you won't be accepted to both. You will have to ultimately choose one or the other. You can't enroll in both. But the admissions decision in one program does not affect the admissions decision in the other. So if you are struggling to decide which is the best fit for you, first of all, I'm happy to set up time to talk. You can email me at skgrogg, I'll type that in the chat as well, at bu.edu. And I can help walk you through both programs. Or if you just want to apply to both, that's also definitely an option.
There was a question about how many apps we get. I don't know the answer for the MA program, but for MSSP, for the last 2 years, we've gotten about 520 a year.
I believe for the MA and stats, the past year it was a little over 300 for that program. And as I was sort of mentioning earlier in the presentation, we are seeing with the majority of our programs that they are growing each year, so we do expect that that number will increase. Hi, Pete. So for the two programs that's not fully funded, so they might receive scholarships to cover a portion of it, but the program itself is not fully funded. But as Sean was mentioning, there might be opportunities for students to work on campus, which might also help to defer some of the costs.
One thing I also realized I forgot to mention when going over the basic requirements of the program. So we do have, as Haviland touched upon, 5 required classes, which all of our students have to take. But then the remaining 3 credits are electives. And you can take these in a variety of different departments, different fields. These are meant to specifically gear you towards whatever field of data science you find most interesting. We have students take actuarial science classes, we have students take computer science classes, economics classes. We have a list of pre-approved electives that I can send you if you're admitted and looking to register. But at the same time, don't feel restricted to that. If you find a class on campus that you believe to be a compelling course for your degree and your area of study, you can always petition for it to be counted as well. So just something to consider when planning your academic path here.
Answer the question about MA program practicum.
So the MA program does not have a practicum. The MA program also is not, to my knowledge, have any career-oriented classes. The MA program is largely a more traditional master's program in statistics. So again, it's a lot of theory, and I can get you a list if you're interested. Sorry about that. I will be putting my email at the end of this chat, and I can get you a list of the required classes we have for the MA program, so you can look that over and get a better sense of what sort of stuff you'd be learning if you pursue that path.
Just to quickly jump in and answer a couple questions here. For Katie's question about the TOEFL requirement, for any students who have completed a degree at a U.S. institution or at an institution where English was the language of instruction, the TOEFL requirement will be waived, so they don't have to submit that in that case. And then to Jenna's question about evening classes, it's not strictly evening classes, so they might be offered at a number of times throughout the day, but Sean can speak to that as well.
Hi, Jenna, or hi, everyone, but specifically to Jenna. So no, next year we'll be having, our practicum is going to be split up into 2 sections. There will be a morning section, which is from 11 to 12:15, and there will also be an evening section that begins at 5. You will be enrolled in either or, so it won't be you're in both of those. And then 2 of our other required courses will be, they run in the afternoon. I think they start at around 3. So not evening. And then in terms of electives, that's a bit of a mixed bag. It depends on what courses you take. There are some students who only take evening electives, but if you find a daytime class that interests you, that's certainly not out of the question at all. It's very common, actually. So yeah, I want to make it clear that this isn't solely an evening program. We just have sections to help those students who do need it to be more evening oriented.
Just sort of within the essence of time, we will have few more minutes just for a couple of questions to wrap up. I do also want to note that my contact info, as well as Sean's, is on this page. So definitely feel free to reach out to us with any specific questions about the program. We're happy to connect with you. If you're local too, and if you want to stop by on campus to visit and take a tour, we're also happy to facilitate that as well.
Yeah, we'd love to have you, and prospective students are definitely welcome to come and sit in on the practicum, which is on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and set up a meeting with myself or Professor Wright. So yeah, don't hesitate to call or email.
So we will conclude the presentation at this time, but definitely feel free to reach out with any questions. You mostly have my contact info, but as I was saying, it's definitely on this page, and we'll be sending out the slides as well. So you have access to that information soon after the presentation.
So we're in the midst of answering some questions. So
Yeah. Okay, you good. Yep, so we'll wrap up. I think there's a couple questions through the chat that we'll respond to now.
did we get them all?